one of the 16 Turkish states in the presidential coat of arms, the founder of the Timurid Empire, a commander of Turkish-Mongol origin. Timur is one of the greatest military geniuses that history has ever seen. Timur did not come from a noble family and did not receive a good education. Despite this, he knew 3 languages and had a great command of history and literature. Timur's father is a Mongol, but according to some sources, it is claimed that the Barlas tribe, which is Timur's tribe, is of Turkish origin, not Mongolian. However, it is known that his mother was Turkish, so he uses Emir in his title, not Khan. To briefly talk about Timur's life story, after his father handed over the Barlas tribe principality to him, he declared allegiance to Tughlaq Khan, and under his citizenship he ensured that the control of the Transoxiana River was given to him. Although this is just the beginning of the road for Timur, it is a great start. Timur, who received the support of the people around him and built a considerable army, started an uprising against Tughlaq Khan, and showed the Sayyids who were imprisoned as the reason for this uprising. In this way, he will both gain the appreciation of the Muslim community and acquire a militia for himself. Timur, a middle-class commander working under the command of the Chagatai Khan, was returning with a force of 1,000 people, helping his friend in Sistan. He was both happy and proud to have helped, and saddened by the loss of his men. He was attacked unexpectedly. This attack was retaliated, but Timur took arrows from his right hand and foot. Timur sat down in front of a wall in pain. He felt that he had no strength left in a paralyzed situation. He was very upset and knew that everything was over. At the age of 34, all the dreams he had in the prime of his life were flying away one by one. While thinking these things, he turned his head and saw an ant. He started following the ant. For that moment, there was only that ant in Timur's life and thoughts, and he experienced an awareness. The ant was trying to climb the steep wall it was leaning on, falling every time and never giving up. After many attempts, the ant managed to get over that wall. At that moment, Timur said to himself, "If an ant can do it, I can do it too." That was the first moment when Timur dominated the world. It was the first moment when faith and dreams turned towards reality. He learned to resist the ant's resistance, not to despair from failures, to repeat and continue until he reached the goal. Now Timur had given up hopelessness and believed in the future. An ant would build an empire for Timur. Timur, who organized great expeditions in a short time, was expanding his lands on the one hand and building a magnificent city in the central Samarkand on the other. He established a civilization with minarets decorated with tiles, madrasas, educators and even space exploration. Timur, who defeated Ahmet Salayr in Baghdad and Isfahan and the Mamluk army in Egypt, declared himself as the only representative of the region. He defeated Tokhtamas Khan with 2 great wars and brought Melik Timur to the head of the Golden Horde state and took it under his command. He was an extremely aggressive and fearless genius. A city, country, or inn that resisted him could never escape his persecution. Whoever stood in his way would be destroyed. He would make such great slaughter that other cities and armies could never resist. Sometimes he even destroyed cities that had surrendered. In other words, Timur's right and left was not very clear. Before their cities were destroyed, he would gather all the artisans, scientists and clergymen and take them to his capital. The remaining city was plundered. Despite being such a murderous man, he wouldn't let anyone talk about violence and death next to him, and he was such a strange personality. It is said that he is both a fine-spirited artist and a ruthless villain. It is interesting how he could accommodate these 2 personalities. In 1398, Timur decided to attack the Delhi Sultanate, and after crossing the Indus River, in a battle with the non-Muslim peoples, he beheaded 10,000 people within an hour. As a result of this conflict, he took 100,000 people in the region hostage, and before his war with the Sultan of Delhi, he ordered his men to kill all these Hindus, considering the possibility of these hostages helping the enemy. A few days later, Timur's legendary army entered Delhi and destroyed the city. Timur was not satisfied with this, and on his way to the north, he destroyed everything that came in his way. In the month after capturing Delhi, he had won 20 battles with an outnumbered army, perhaps setting a record in this area. As soon as he saw the Indian army consisting of elephants with his great expedition to India, Timur, who learned lessons from every aspect of his life, did not return empty-handed and placed the elephants in his army. His army generally consisted of Black Tatars, Kipchak Turks, Mongolian archers, Turkmen cavalry and elephants brought from the Hindu region. This steppe army, which had a disciplined structure, was extremely durable and fast. Timur, grasping the steppe leadership left by Cengiz faster than the other heirs, wanted to establish a Turkish state system in Central Asia with the gas of the Akoyanlu state. After India, Timur's main target was China. While preparing for the expedition to China, he did not want any threat to the West. There were two important threats to him in the West at that time. One was the Ottomans trying to conquer Anatolia, and the other was the Mamluks further south. On the other hand, Timur had doubts about whether these two would ally against me. He was not unjustified in his suspicions. Because Bayezid was doing the most impossible job at the most unlikely time. In fact, Timur wanted to be subordinate to him in a way, not fighting with Bayezid. He did not have a problem with the Ottomans because, at that time, the Ottomans were a blessed state that was appreciated in the Islamic world with its wars. He thought he was on the same mission as himself. The spread of this news caused the Europe of that period to be alarmed and caused the classic blocking scenarios to be made. As a sign of goodwill, Timur had a letter sent to him by Kara Yusuf and Ahmet Salayir, who took refuge in Yildirim Bayezid, to be delivered to him. Bayezid reacted unexpectedly. He sent a very extreme and even unspeakable letter, full of insults to the masculinity of Timur. While he writes his own name in gold letters in the letter, he writes Timur's name under his own name in small letters, in black ink. In a way, he says he is superior to you. In fact, the fact that he attempted such a task at that time shows that Bayezid was not a very good politician. Because while he is currently trying to take Istanbul, he is challenging Timur on the other hand, and more importantly, it is a mystery why he is attempting such a thing. Timur, on the other hand, is trying to maintain his own weight. A huge commander who came out of nowhere and claimed the legacy of Timuçin, aka Genghis Khan. However, Timur is careful not to provoke Bayezid too much. While praising himself on the one hand, he praises the Ottoman Empire on the other, sticking to the language of diplomacy and having Bayezid's name written next to his name in his letters, despite Bayezid's provocations. But Bayezid continues the same style. During this time, Timur's demands were not fulfilled, and the men he wanted were not delivered to Timur. The correspondence has also reached a threatening level. It is clear in his letters that he avoided fighting with the Ottomans. Of course, this is not because he was afraid of the Ottoman army. But the man's aim is to organize an expedition to the east, not to the west, that is, to obtain tiles and to put the legendary Silk Road back in order. He did not have a problem that could not be resolved with the Ottomans. But he wants obedience, that was for sure. Bayezid, on the other hand, crossed the borders a little at this point and started to count not only Timur but also Timur's soldiers. He despised the Tatars, praising his own soldiers, his Serb cavalry, his janissaries. Timur, who was out of patience, started the war by occupying the Shiva's castle. Afterwards, Timur was advancing to Ankara rapidly and Ankara was besieged. Bayezid goes to Tokat to greet Timur from the front, but the news came that Timur was already in Ankara. His army in Tokat had to walk for days and come to Ankara. On the way, he lost 5,000 of his soldiers just because of this tactical mistake. The rest were tired and exhausted. While Timur's army had rested for days and completed its war preparations, Bayezid's army was tired. The two biggest armies of the period came face to face on the Cubic Plain. The armies of the two warriors, who were going to fight in the bloodiest battle of the Middle Ages, started the war after the Friday prayer they held against each other. In the war, especially the wing formed by Bayezid's Serbian son-in-law fights very well and has come a long way. Even Timur was impressed by these soldiers. But then they're called back so they don't get in the way with headquarters. The event that changed the fate of the war takes place on the other wing. The Black Tatars here are changing sides all of a sudden, and they are left alone with the danger of defeating the Ottoman army. In short, this wing of the Ottoman army disintegrates first. Then the other wing of Serbian cavalry. His son-in-law advised Bayezid to withdraw, but Bayezid did not listen to him either. Although the Janissaries resisted very well here, they only lasted until the night of that day. Bayezid was also captured while trying to escape. The historical mistake here was not in the strategies in the war. The mistake here was actually Bayezid Khan, who could not see the difference in power between the two states and succumbed to his arrogance with successive successes and victories. Because at that time, in 1402, Timur's state was an empire, whereas the Ottomans were a promising state that had just emerged from the principality. As you can see, Sultan Bayezid challenged a state 2 shirts bigger than him and confronted the greatest war genius of his time. It is clear from the beginning that Timur's intention was not to destroy the Ottoman Empire. If he had such an intention, no one would have stood in his way while he had won the Ankara War. Timur stayed in Anatolia for 2 to 3 years and took the Velvet Castle in Izmir, which Yildirim Bayezid could not besiege for months, from the Rhodes Knights in a short time like 15 days. After this event, Timur, who received declarations of loyalty and gifts from many European states, withdrew from Anatolia to central Samarkand 9 months later. Without wasting much time, his main goal was to go to China, on an expedition that he believed would get rid of his sins, and he died during this expedition. His life had been spent almost on the battlefields and he had not lost a single battle. We have come to the end of the video. You can write your opinions in the comment section. See you in the next video. Bye.